Now, as you've been hearing, 159 post offices around the country are to close as part of a deal reached between An Post and the Irish Postmasters Union. The west of Ireland is the worst hit by the closures. Galway will lose 18 post offices, Donegal 17 and Mayo 11. No post offices are set to close in Dublin. 11 post offices will close in County Wexford. And our reporter Aisling Kenny spoke to Anne Marks, who owns 2 businesses in Camolin in County Wexford. And she says the closure of her local post office will be a major loss.
Closing the post office for our businesses, Barrow Signs and Lily Blooms, it means that we will have to send one of our staff out of the workplace to drive to the nearest post office each evening so that we can get our products out for delivery with An Post. And it means taking up valuable work time that we would have always just, instead of taking 5 minutes to run up to the local post office, it's now going to take a minimum of half an hour, maybe more. For the whole village as a whole, like it's another thing they're closing down, like we're being bypassed shortly. It's going to really affect businesses, all businesses in the village.
Well, we're joined now for more on this from our Limerick studio by Fianna Fáil's Communications Spokesperson, Deputy Timmy Dooley. Deputy Dooley, you're very welcome to the programme.
Good morning.
These post office closures have been a long time coming. They've been well signposted. Now that the list is out, though, and we know where these post offices are closing, are you surprised by the scale?
I am, but I suppose maybe we shouldn't be, because there has been various reports produced really over the past 6 or 7 years that has indicated a significant fall off in activity at the post offices. That was and should have been a signal to this government and to previous governments to address this in a number of ways. Firstly, through the Bobby Kerr report, which was a comprehensive report that identified a number of other services that could be provided to try to increase the level of activity, but the government unfortunately have ignored that. Now, what we have a situation where this really important public service is being lost to many communities. Now, I think we all accept that there's a lesser amount of activity happening in post offices, but that shouldn't be a ruse to remove the service from those who still need it. Just because people are communicating online and because social welfare payments are paid directly into bank accounts for some, doesn't mean that the service should be removed from all. I believe the government has a responsibility to give communities across Ireland equal access to these essential services, and the post office is one such service. Now, An Post, it's a commercial semi-state company, and viability for them is around profit and loss, and I accept and understand that. But the government has a responsibility to ensure that the post office network is extensive enough to meet the needs of citizens and businesses, just like you've had in your clip there. So it is the responsibility of government to provide post office services in a comprehensive way that meets the needs of those communities, and it shouldn't be focused just on profit and loss, and it should be more to do with the viability of the communities that they have served heretofore.
You accept, though, Deputy Dooley, that An Post, it's not a charity. It says that closing these 159 post offices will allow it to improve the services at its remaining 950 post offices.
Of course, it's not a charity, but improving the services for some at a loss to others is not acceptable. We have to be in a position as a state to provide an equality or an equivalence of service across the state, whether it's in urban or rural areas. And there are many people who live, there are many people who work, and there are many people who need that service. And you even look to the more vulnerable in society. This retention level now that An Post has, that says a village with a population of 500 and within 15 kilometres of another post office is the criteria by which a post office will be retained. Well, that's unacceptable, because that places an intolerable burden on elderly and vulnerable people who don't have access to private transport, and we well know that there isn't an adequate level of public transport in rural areas. So for all of those reasons, there's an encumbrance on the state to support the network through, in my view, the provision of a public service obligation on An Post to retain the network at its current strength, supported through an agreed annual subvention to protect and preserve the services. So that would be a recognition by the state that you support public services from the central exchequer, and that you do so not from a charitable perspective, but to ensure that an adequate level of public service is rolled out. Public services at the end of the day are always paid for or supported from central exchequer rather than in a profit and loss viability model.
With respect, Deputy Dooley, this downgrading of rural Ireland and its post office provision didn't happen overnight. When Fianna Fáil was in government between 2005 and 2010, 288 post offices were closed.
Yeah, no, I accept that. But if you go back through all of those closures, you will recognise that in many cases they were in really remote areas where there was no longer any demand for the services, and when at the time An Post offered contracts, there was nobody else to take them up. So it wasn't a planned programme of closure like this is. It was just a natural reduction where postmasters and postmistresses retired, where the contracts were offered again in many cases to other businesses in the community, and they weren't taken up. That has happened through successive governments right back the last 20, 30, 40 years. What we have in this instance, though, is a very planned approach by An Post.
It has been well signposted, Deputy Dooley. Now, your party colleague Mark McSharry, TD for Sligo Leitrim, he has said that because of this, Fianna Fáil should not support the government in October's budget unless this is reversed. Do you agree with him?
Well, I have written to the Minister for Communications. I've made it very clear the concerns that Fianna Fáil has about this. And you will appreciate that the discussions around the budget 2019 are ongoing. Fianna Fáil contested the last election on the basis of improving public services, not reducing them. It's a really important issue, as you know, for communities affected.
So should it be a red line issue for you and the party?
Well, now look, I appreciate that you're looking for a headline this morning, and I'm more interested in trying to find a solution for the 160 communities that are faced with the loss of post offices. So, no different to the last two budgets, we'll engage proactively with the government in direct talks rather than doing it over the airways.
All right, we'll leave it there for this